burning question that I have to ask you is, this is complex for my patients in the world to think that they've been sold the idea that fish oil is an essential fatty acid that every single person has to consume. And they're being sold that that's biologically what we need. Have you heard this before?
Of course.
So help me understand so that I can educate my patients in the world how this plant-based omega could possibly, something so far to the left from what we've been told, could possibly be the solution. Help me.
Okay. Yeah, there's a lot of bad science behind a lot of the fish oil research and stuff like that. But it's the original problem is from where the beginnings in 1976 when they did the Danish study on Inuits from Greenland, and they assumed that low rates of heart disease were because of their high fish intake. And they said it must be the fish.
That's where it came from.
Right, that's where it all came from. That's when it started. And it solved a problem for the fish industry because they used to take all the livers and the stuff and they used to just toss them overboard. And now they said, well, we can keep this and make money from it.
Like cod liver oil.
But when you actually look at Inuit diet, they don't eat that much fish. They eat seal blubber, whale blubber.
Fat.
They eat high quality mammal fats.
Got it.
Okay. And the other problem is nobody considered the structure of the cell itself. So the cell membrane, which we all have, is made up of omega-6. But plant-based, the 18 carbon one. Fish is all 20 and 22 carbon fatty acids with higher amounts of double bonds. I don't want to get too complicated, but
simple. The
more double bonds you have in a structure, the more liquid it is, or the more and fish need this because they live at 0 degrees centigrade or 32 Fahrenheit. They live in freezing water. If they had the same cell membrane makeup as we did, they'd be a block of ice. Right? So they need the more unstable fats. The problem is we don't. We live at a higher body temperature. I
can get on board with that.
That's right. We need the plant-based stuff. The plants grow at the same temperature we do. And it makes more sense that we'd be made of what they're made of rather than made of something that came from a mile under the ocean. So
how does this solve the problem?
So this solves the problem because this is the organic cold-pressed oil from those plants. So these have the essential plant-based fats that we need to build healthy cell membranes and healthy mitochondrial membranes, which is the energy booster of all the cells. And the key to it is because of the way it's processed. It's cold pressed, not only cold pressed, but cold pressed under a blanket of nitrogen, so it is not exposed to oxygen. And oxygen is the enemy of all unsaturated fats.
Correct.
All right. And
I think that the average person can get on board with that.
That's right. And what's really cool is that because it affects the membrane and how the membrane functions, the people will feel the difference rapidly, usually within only a few weeks. And anyone who's taken it can attest to that.
Okay. So here's where people are going to get lost, and this is where I really need some help. We've been sold that omega-6s are also pro-inflammatory. Correct?
That's what we're told.
Yes. So the average consumer says, I heard that I need more omega-3s, which are anti-inflammatory. And the bill that has been sold to us is that comes from your fish oils. And that has been wildly adopted by the average consumer. And you're telling me that this product is high in omega-6s.
Correct.
Okay. Now, how do we flip that mindset? You're telling me that we need omega-6s for the cell membrane because it's more in the form that is usable by the cell membrane.
Correct.
How do we fix that mindset?
Okay. So it's all about structure and function, and nature has both combined. So when we're looking at the pro-inflammatory, anti-inflammatory effects of fats, we're talking about that little bit that goes down the fatty acid cascade to make different products, different things that their body needs for different purposes. So the prostaglandins are, I don't want to get too complex here, but the end product of our fatty acid cascade is prostaglandins and thromboxanes and things like that. But some of these are inflammatory and some of these are anti-inflammatory. And when you look at the omega-6 pathways, they actually divide into equal amounts of both, which makes sense because you need some inflammation in your body, because if you cut your hand, you would bleed to death if you didn't have an inflammatory response.
Yeah,
So you
totally.
need partial inflammation, but it also produces one of the most potent anti-inflammatories we make, which is prostaglandin E1. So the body knows what to do, but it needs the basic molecules to do it with, and this is what's here. When you put omega-3s in, and I don't like the omega is a biochemical naming term, but when you put those high amounts of
But that's what we know
that's
as
right, that's what it
consumers.
is.
Yeah.
When you put those high amounts of omega-3s in your system, you're actually overloading your body in the omega-3 side of those pathways, and you actually get problems. Like anyone who takes the high amounts of fish oil probably notices they bruise easier. They don't stop bleeding nearly as fast. That's all signs that they're not mounting the proper inflammatory response.
So you can actually drive your system too far out of balance by taking too many fish oils.
Yes, you
see,
can.
this is like really, you guys you're fringe right now.
Okay. Well, and so if anyone doesn't believe,
And I understand that,
if
and it's
anyone
hard.
it is hard.
It's challenging.
If anyone doesn't believe me about driving too much fish oil in their system, anyone who's taken large amounts of fish oil, look at your hands. And if there's brown spots on your hands, age spots, that's oxidized fish oil. That's not supposed to be there. And what's really cool is that when you go on this stuff, those things go away.
Can go away.
And
So what's how do we make that shift other than having this conversation?
education is key. It's really tough because we're fighting this avalanche of advertising backed by really horribly done science. Right? The biochemical pathways and the cell membrane structures have been worked out for decades. The problem is we've basically left it behind and we said, oh, modern science can answer any question.
Yeah.
But the modern science, a lot of it's, they're approaching it with a goal in mind of what the result they want, so they design the experiments to show that.
So to play the devil's advocate, and I value where this conversation goes, can you push the system too far with omega-6s? With this, like you are suggesting you do with the omega-3s?
You probably can't get too bad with omega-6s as long as they're the properly sourced organic kind, right? The problem is the processing in our diet. We keep blaming too much omega-6 in our diet for all our problems. It's actually too much processed omega-6. The reason why that omega-6 is so dominant in nature is because it's so important. That's why it's there.
It's true.
And so we have to get away from this mindset of trying to fight nature. Nature's trying to help us, but we just got to listen,
Yeah.
right? This
Absolutely.
the plants are a reflection of who we are. We grew up with them
amen.
in evolutionary.
I'm on board with that. I'm on board with that. This is, ever since I first met you years ago, I just have thought to myself, this message that you're telling me is not complex. It's that when you compare it to the message that the fish oil industry is telling us, that the average consumer is on board with. Now we're entering that fringe zone where people are like, well, no, everyone knows that fish oil is good for us. And then we come in from over here and we're like, well, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Wait a minute.
It's-
And you're the only person I've ever met, outside of some of like Dr. Pompa and some of these other practitioners, who's actually had a solution for that that's validated. Doesn't mean it's simple to educate the consumers on, but it also doesn't mean that it's not necessary for that shift. So that's really cool.
Part of it's, I think, to blame with our one pill, one disease mentality that we've grown up with in North America in general, and thinking that things can only do one thing.
Yeah.
And I get that question all the time. It's like, what does it do? It's like, well, it solves a lot of different issues, but because you don't, when you take a Tylenol, it just doesn't attack your headache.
Systemic.
It affects everything in your body. Right?
For years, we always told people, we called it the big four.
Yeah.
Take fish oils, take your multivitamin, take your probiotic, and take vitamin D. Every person, every day for life.
Yeah.
As a wellness practitioner, I prescribed to that years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what people would say, Doc, what should I be on? The big four. What's the big four? I walk over to my shelf, this, and this.
Mm-hmm.
How long do I stay on it? Forever.
Yeah.
Just because your biology needs that stuff. And they're like, okay.
Yeah.
But now all of a sudden it's like,
Yeah, you have to rethink the messaging, right? We weren't so stupid all those years ago when we were all farmers, right? Not all farmers, right?
Isn't it funny that now we're all trying to be farmers again?
Yeah.
That's the way that it should go.
That's the way it
Back to
should
the
be.
source.
Exactly.
Thanks.
Exactly.
Great
Thank you very
conversation.
much.
I'm glad that we actually captured some of that.
Yeah.
I talk to you over and over again every year, and I'm still like, I can't grasp how to educate my patients on this without feeling like I'm hammering them. And like you probably know, I mean, I can do a talk and I can explain that, and someone prescribes to this, and I'm like, okay. And then a month later, if I went into their house, there'd be 15 bottles lined up,
Yep.
and they'd be like, oh yeah, that's right. What were you talking about when I
Exactly.
made that purchase?
Exactly.
Right, Shree?
Hold
It was like,
hold that up to the camera.
There it is.
there it is.
Capsules of liquid.
Capsules and liquid. Thanks, Doc.
All right. Great. Thank you very much.